What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of not just Kerbal Space Program gameplay video recorded by Matt Lowne, but also an installment of my series Destination Duna, which is now an official series coined far too late into the series itself. We're going to be doing another ship designed for Duna, as the name would suggest, and as the title and thumbnail will hopefully have suggested as well. But it's going to be something special. It's not only going to be a big base addition to the expedition, but it's going to be a mobile base. See, we sent a static base to act as a sort of ground hub for our series of Duna expeditions, but ultimately it's got loads of science equipment, mining equipment, all that good stuff, but once it's kind of depleted its immediate vicinity, can't really do a lot. Enter the Mars machine. Duna machine would have been more fitting for kind of KSP, but I do love my alliteration, and it's kind of a play on mystery machine, and Mars machine begins with M as well, so you know that's why it's called the Mars machine. And we're going to be making a very special custom flag, much like I did with my Mun machine rover I made back in 2017. Such a time flies, eh? So I'll be showing you kind of a quick Photoshop time lapse of me making the flag for this mission as well, but don't worry, it will be very quick. Like, I think it's like 30 seconds of it wasn't a big Photoshop job, but people ask me how I make flags, so I thought I'd just quickly show how I did that. Not much to talk about here, I'm just building it. So I wanted this to have two things, or two functions to it really. First of all, I wanted it to serve all of the functions that the main ground base does. So it's got ore refinery, ore tanks, drills, so it can actually mine ore from the surface, as well as full laboratory equipment. So it's got the big science lab, every piece of science equipment in this game, including the breaking ground stuff, so you know, the deployable science kit, that'll be on board this rover as well, which in fact wasn't even present on the static base. It's something I completely overlooked. We can actually address that design flaw with this mission as well. In addition to all of that, it's going to have ample crew capacity, and in fact quite a lot of crew capacity. You can see we have that gigantic kind of passenger module there that I believe seats 18 Kerbals comfortably, as well as all the other kind of additional crew cabins scattered throughout the rest of the structure. The reason for this is because I want to have some sort of vehicle that can go from the Duna base camp, or when I say Duna base camp, I mean the orbiting space station around Duna, carry the Kerbals from that down to the surface, and then can get back up again. Sometimes, you know, landing on Duna can be difficult. It's hard to get it exactly precise. We probably won't always be landing in very close proximity to the surface base. So this thing can go along and just ferry Kerbals to and from the surface transportation, as in like the surface to orbit transportation to the base itself. I don't know yet if I will really need that function, because I would like to have some level of accuracy when it comes to landing vehicles near the static base. One idea I had would be some sort of glider. Well, as in, it would be a rocket, obviously, so we could get back into orbit, but it would have big wings, possibly ones that could fold away, such that, you know, once it enters Duna's atmosphere, it can then glide with some level of control to get to the base, even if we don't get our descent trajectory dead on. The issue with this, because this is what I did for Life on Lathe, the actual surface to orbit vehicle was an SSTO aircraft. The problem with this, with Duna, is that its atmosphere is very, very thin, so gliders don't work particularly well unless they have very, very big wings, which obviously means they've got a quite high drag, which means kind of the actual ascent after the thick part of the atmosphere is a little bit less efficient, because the wings are still there to mash against the air when they're not really needed. And of course, they come with a lot of extra weight having big wings. And, you know, we've got to bear in mind as well that that also includes the addition of an extra layer of fragility and Kraken attack susceptibility. So I don't know, maybe I'll have some sort of swing wing design. I haven't really thought it through. Or even maybe, I don't know, like a helicopter blade will fold out a bit like the, what was it called? The Roton rocket? I think it was called the Roton rocket. You know, that janky SSTO mock-up that never really got past the design phase. Maybe something like that. I don't know. Haven't really thought about it too much. I wanted to build the rover base because I would lie to you. I didn't have much time to make a video this week. I've got big things happening in my life right now. I'm getting lots of building work sorted out for my house, because this house I live in was quite cheap, because it was done, I think, I think it was last renovated in the 1960s on the cheap, possibly by the homeowner, who I suspect was not very good at DIY. So a lot of things in this house are not very well built. Like the kitchen, pretty minging. A wall needs knocking down. A boiler needs reinstalling. The electrics basically need a full rewire. I could go on, so I will. I want Cat 5 in every room, and the carpets need ripping up. I know you guys, you bastards. I can use that word now because this video is not intended for children under the age of 13. Please don't sue me, copper, or whatever it is you guys do. It needs a full rewire. And you guys have said, oh, Matt, your carpets suck. I didn't choose those carpets. They were there when I bought the house. I apologize profusely. I hate them too. And that's what I want to really address. So that's kind of my life at the moment. It's just preparing for the building work. Anyway, speaking of preparing, we are preparing for the mission by creating a cool flag, like I said earlier. We're going to make the Mars machine. So the first thing I did was just copy in the Scooby-Doo Mystery Machine logo, and then just kind of assembled some of the letters to spell out Mars, so I had the right font, and then just drew over it a little bit more neatly. Then we just add the color, add the outline, and then we did like a little outline around the whole thing, kind of mimic that green box around it, and then we just color correct. It's very hard to talk about footage when it's passing by that quickly, but there is the finished product, as you can see, jittering about somewhat unnaturally on the flagpole as we prepare for our launch, which is happening now. There we are, a very reserved pace off the launch pad. This thing doesn't have a particularly good TWR, nor is it particularly aerodynamic as well. So I can just speed up the footage through the power of video editing, and we can get into our ascent. Now our gravity turn is going to be a little bit less aggressive. I don't want to say less aggressive because I don't think my gravity turns are particularly aggressive anyway, but I'm going for a much more steep trajectory, just because, as I mentioned, this thing is first of all not very aerodynamic, so we don't want to spend that much time trying to accelerate in the thicker parts of the atmosphere where we're not going to get very far because this thing is just a brick basically. But also, in the head canon I have, even though the parts could probably withstand the heating, I like to think that there are some delicate pieces of scientific equipment here that are not shielded at all, and so we don't want to go too fast in the lower atmosphere and induce some plasma licking the sides of the rover and potentially causing damage to the very delicate equipment, I say, as we see lots and lots of flames. So maybe my memory is fading. I'm 25 years old now, so I'm basically a pet. Like how old are you? You're probably like 12, Ryan. And there you go. I've successfully freaked out one 12-year-old called Ryan, who statistically might be watching this video.
Who should not be watching a video that is 100% intended for audiences over the age of 13. Please click off this video if you are younger than 13. Copper, get off my...
Anyway, there we are. We have an apoapsis in space, which is always a good thing in any KSP mission. I'm going to raise it to 80 kilometers just because I like 80 kilometer apoapsis, apogees, orbital heights. One of those words is probably correct. Just because it gives us a little bit of room when it comes to performing our escape burn, that we're not going to dip into the atmosphere unwittingly. So we're going to just accelerate up now. It's only a half a kilometer meter per second of burn. Half a kilometer per second burn, which with these two gigantic, I was about to say these two mammoth Rhino engines, but that might be a little bit confusing because there is an engine called Mammoth in this game as well. But these two big Rhino engines have great thrust to rate ratios, so it didn't take very long to do the burn. And then we can just zoom out and set Duna as our target. And the more eagle-eyed among you may notice we are already at a good Duna transfer window, which for those of you that don't know, and this has kind of been memed I think at this point that I say this every video, but I will say it, I will continue saying it because it's a useful piece of information, and statistically there's at least one person that's never seen any of my videos before watching this. The way you know you're at a good Duna transfer window is if you were to draw a line from Kerbin to the sun to Duna, the angle that line forms at the sun would be 44.4 degrees, I think is the exact one. I always say 45 degrees, but I'm trying to change it up. So I'm taking off a completely insignificant amount from that. 44.4 is the actual transfer window, I believe, but I'd say 45 because that's easier to eyeball I mean, I know the numbers are virtually the same, but 45, everyone knows that, is a safe number. It's easy to say. Don't know why I'm continuing with this tangent, really, because it's not really interesting. Anyway, we are... I guess... oh, here we go. So just before our maneuver node is done, I'm just going to continue eyeballing it, and just cancel the maneuver node, just because the maneuver node isn't always completely accurate when it comes to executing your burn itself, so I tend to cancel it out just before the burn is done, just so I can make sure that we're definitely going to get our encounter. We're not going to overshoot or undershoot. And there we are. We have a Duna encounter. Not a great one. I'd like to get into an equatorial orbit around Duna. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to... edit the orbits now. So when it's like you have to change it, if you're coming in from like a polar orientation like we are here, generally it's normal and anti-normal you want to pull on to bring yourself down to the right plane, and then do a bit of tweaking with retrograde and prograde here and there. But I knew that I was probably going to overshoot the maneuver node because I always do that, because I get distracted. I look at just a fly on the wall and then just get... I don't know. I always manage to overshoot, and I'm pretty sure... yep, there we go. I've overshot the burn here by 40 minutes, which isn't much, but as you can see, it did have quite a dramatic effect on our actual resulting orbit, so I had to do some minor adjustments. I decided to just guess how to do it without creating a maneuver node, and I kind of got it right. I made a quick maneuver node just to confirm I had to burn normal to correct the rest of the orbit to get ourselves on an equatorial plane, and it did raise our apoapsis a bit, so that I burned rate. Okay, you can see what's happening on screen. I'm just trying to explain why this wasn't very coherent, that series of burns. I was just sort of guessing and only occasionally got it right. You'd think the amount of time I've put into this game, I might be somewhat good at it, but there we go. I'm always demonstrating how that's not always true. So yeah, I am sort of dreading when KSP2 comes out, because I'm worried that about the very realistic prospect that I'll be terrible at it, and then I have to kind of carry on the expectation of making Kerbal videos. So I'll probably just take some annual leave off work and just play it until I kind of get the gist of things. I'm assuming it won't be dramatically different, because it will still be based on Newtonian physics, I would imagine. So there's only so much that I would really have to relearn, if I have to relearn anything at all, which, like I say, touch wood, hopefully I won't. Here we are, by the way. So trying to just steer the conversation away from my own ineptitudes. Here we are circularizing at Duna, because I ain't no scrub the aero brakes. And like I say, I want to try and preserve the integrity of the delicate scientific equipment by not slamming it into atmospheres. I just switched to the static base here to make sure it was on the daylight side of the planet, so that we'd be, rendezvousing with it during the day, because that makes for a better video, because YouTube videos, just by the compression algorithm, are darker anyway, and just from an aesthetic view, daytime, it's just nice to look at. You can really appreciate the that rusty red color of the planet. And we got a nice... I was just looking at the map screen there. We've got quite a nice landing spot for that static base, really. We've got the edge of that. It looks like a bit like a big canyon, doesn't it? Isn't that lots of fun? So I'm just going to burn retrograde a little bit to deorbit ourselves. I think I was a little bit overly aggressive at first, so I quickly puffed prograde again, so we wouldn't be completely undershooting. You want to aim to be on a trajectory that will put you past your target when landing at Duna, and anywhere with an atmosphere, really, as far as the actual map screen is concerned. You want to place your landing point beyond the target, like it is there, not only to accommodate for the fact that the planet is going to rotate during your landing sequence, but also the fact that once you hit the thicker parts of the atmosphere, you're going to start slowing down with atmospheric drag. And as you can see, that's exactly what happened. I ended up overshooting. So, undershooting. So I tried puffing with those vector engines a bit, but I quickly realized that was a somewhat futile effort. So I just accepted my fate and let the parachutes deploy. And whilst they're deploying, by the way, we can spin ourselves around to face our target, because this thing has the turning speed of a merry-go-round. So I wanted to try and point ourselves the right direction before we landed. And there we are, a beautiful touchdown. We can detach those ugly vector engines with the parachute modules. Whoosh! There they go, getting destroyed. And we get a nice firework display as they as we coast our way to the base, which is only, just less than 10 kilometers in the distance, which is not that far. This is a beast of a rover. can easily do the journey. I'm obviously not going to play the journey at real-time speed, though. We can speed it up initially. I'm going to speed it up just to show that I'm not just going to use Vessel Mover, because I appreciate I have Vessel Mover installed, so I would not judge you if you were to jump to the conclusion that I just moved this thing using Vessel Mover. So I'll just show the uncut journey to the base. I will speed the footage up a little bit more now. Let's just do that now. And I can't think of anything to talk about. I mean, I do apologize for the very, very lurchy look of the camera movements. During the journey, I decided to try and take some cool shots that could potentially be the thumbnail. Haven't decided which, if any, I use, so you may notice the thumbnail shot there. Leave a comment below if you saw the bit that included the shot I used in the thumbnail, and I will probably not respond, but, you know, you'll have some validation, and that is a reward in and of itself. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, you know, people comment first on my videos, and that doesn't really come with a reward. So maybe you'll find some peace, some inner peace, if you can find the thumbnail shot or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, we are here, by the way. We are at the static base. I'm just going to showcase these little bits here. You obviously would have seen me building this in the time lapse, but, you know, there it is being deployed. Oh, solar panels deployed a little bit too close to the base and nudged it a little bit, but it was fine. They didn't get destroyed. But yeah, it's a similar sort of system I made to the Mun machine, actually, which I made, like I said, all the way back in there, where I had the kind of doors to the ship with the ladders encased in those cargo bays, just to provide some environmental protection from things like sandstorms, especially, you know, given that we're on Duna with an atmosphere, so the actual risk of environmental damage is a lot stronger. And of course, the drills can fit in there as well. And what also can fit on screen are more things. How was that? On the left is just, you know, Destination Duna, the series, I guess. On the right, it's just a video chosen for you by YouTube's algorithm. And that's all from me. Bye.